Naples, 1504. A man enters the most contested city in Europe. He is not a king, not a prince, but a second son from Cordoba, born without inheritance or future. And yet France trembles at the sound of his name. The Pope gives him his highest honors, and even his own enemies call him the great captain. But this story doesn't begin with victories. It begins with an orphan boy in Montilla, whom no one expected anywhere. This is the story of Gonzalo Fernández de Córdoba y Enríquez de Aguilar. Thank you. September 1st, 1453. Montilla Castle, Córdoba. Gonzalo is born, the second son of Pedro Fernández de Aguilar, Lord of Aguilar de la Frontera. Being the second son means inheriting nothing. All goes to his brother Alfonso. His father dies while he is still young, and Gonzalo is left in the care of Diego de Cárcamo, who instills in him honor and a fighting spirit. That is how you defend your honor. At the age of 12, he is sent as a page to Prince Alfonso of Castile, but 14, and Gonzalo joins the entourage of Princess Isabel. When the civil war breaks out between Isabel and Juana la Beltraneja, Gonzalo enlists in the Battle of Albuera, 1479, and his name stands out among the warriors of the Master of Santiago. He marries his cousin, Isabel de Montemayor, who dies in childbirth, and his own cousin, the Count of Cabra, captures him and locks him up in his castle.
I would rather rot in these chains than kneel before someone who has no right to the throne. Isabel is the legitimate queen.
Isabel and Fernando personally intervene and secure his freedom. (1482). The kings of Castile and Aragon launched the final campaign against the Nasrid kingdom of Granada. Gonzalo will be on the front lines. The war lasts 10 years. At the siege of Tájera, he proves that he is not only brave but a born engineer. When the troops can't advance under enemy fire, he invents an improvised siege machine using doors torn from the village houses to protect the soldiers' advance. In Montefrio, he commands the assault corps and is the first to scale the enemy wall in full view of friends and foes alike. In 1483, in Lucena, Martín Hurtado de Mendoza, the warden of Lucena, captures King Guabdil when he tries to escape on horseback. But what defines Gonzalo is not his bravery, it's what happens afterward. Guabdil surrenders, asking for mercy for the defeated.
I ask you, my lord, for mercy for my people. They do not fight out of hatred, but out of duty to defend their land. You have my word, mercy is not weakness. This is what separates one soldier from another.
A great friendship grew between them. Gonzalo spoke Arabic fluently, which allowed him to deal directly with the nobility. Lazari became the main negotiator of the surrender agreements of Granada in January 1492. When Guabdil left for exile, Gonzalo accompanied him all the way to Fez, a Christian escorting the last Moorish king of the peninsula, his friend until the end. In 1495, Charles VIII of France invaded Naples. Fernando sends Gonzalo with 60 ships and 6,000 men. In Seminara, Alfonso II of Naples forces him to fight before the right time. As a result, his first and last defeat, never again. From today on, the war will be fought my way and the revolution begins. He studies every mistake from Seminara and designs a new army, reorganizing the captaincies into flexible colonelcies, with 12 companies each of 500 men. He replaces the crossbows with arquebuses, gives absolute prominence to the infantry, with pikemen and swordsmen, and has just invented the seed of the Spanish tercios. With this army, he devastates Calabria and expels the French. When Pope Alexander VI asks him for help because the Basque corsair Menaldo Guerra has taken Ostia and is blockading Rome, Gonzalo bombards it for 5 days and conquers it. In Rome, the Pope accuses the Catholic monarchs of being ill-disposed toward the Church. They do not help the Church at all. Your Holiness, if anyone should reform their life to avoid causing scandal in Christendom, it is certainly not my monarchs. He just called the Pope corrupt. And Alejandro VI, instead of punishing him, gives him the golden rose and the blessed sword, the highest papal honors. When he returns to Spain in 1498, it is his own soldiers and the defeated French who name him the Great Captain. In 1500, Fernando and Louis XII secretly signed the Treaty of Granada, dividing Naples between them, but tensions erupt. In open war, Gonzalo returns to Italy with 8,000 men against a superior French army with the best heavy cavalry in Europe, and entrenches himself in Barletta on the Adriatic coast. Months of attrition, night ambushes in Barletta. They even organize single duels. The Challenge of Barletta on February 13, 1503. The French insulted the bravery of the Spaniards, and they responded in combat, not with words. 11 Spanish knights against 11 Frenchmen, more than 6 hours of fighting. An overwhelming victory for Spain. April 28, 1503, Cerignola. Gonzalo arrives before the French and prepares the ground for 6 hours. Ditch, parapet, stakes, arquebusiers, behind the embankment. To move troops quickly, he orders each cavalryman to carry an infantryman on the back of his horse as a companion.
This way we'll move faster.
When they protest, he himself gets on with a soldier, with a companion behind.
Gentlemen, today we don't fight like our grandfathers. Let them come. Let them all come.
The French heavy cavalry charges. The riders fall into the ditch, the arquebusiers fire at point-blank range, Duke Nemours dies in the first wave, the Swiss infantry attacks uphill, but the lanzknechts hold them back, while the arquebusiers riddle them with bullets. In an hour, it's all over. 3,000 French casualties. The first battle in history won by firearms. Medieval warfare dies at Cerignola.
Victoria!
That night, Gonzalo finds the naked corpse of Nemours, stripped by looters. He orders his dignity to be restored and arranges a funeral worthy of his rank. The great captain defeats his enemies, but he honors them. Months later, on the night of December the 27th, the Spanish army crosses the Garalano River on a pontoon bridge and surprises the French army at dawn. Naples falls into Spanish hands. Gonzalo is named viceroy, but Isabel, Gonzalo's protector, dies in 1504. And everything changes. Fernando, envious of his successes, travels to Naples in 1506 and demands that the great captain give an account of his actions. Gonzalo, humiliated, begins to read some words that will go down in history. 100,000 ducats for picks, shovels, and mattocks to bury the enemy's dead. 150,000 for friars, nuns, and the poor, so they could pray to God for the king's soldiers who fell in battle. 200 million for perfumed gloves, so the troops wouldn't smell the stench of the soldiers. 200 corpses, 170,000 to replace the bells destroyed from so much ringing for victory, and 100 million ducats for the patience of having to stoop to these trifles of the king, to whom I have given a kingdom as a gift. Fernando removes him as viceroy. Gonzalo returns to Spain after a decade in Italy. He is granted the governorship of Loja, an exile in disguise, but his fame is immortal. When Louis XII of France invites him to his table, he says that he who defeats kings deserves to sit with kings. Gonzalo Fernández de Córdoba dies in Granada on December 2, 1515, consumed by the Cortan fevers he contracted in Italy. You might think he rests in peace, but unfortunately, honor does not go hand in hand with everyone. Napoleon's occupation. A group of insecure French soldiers stole his head and shattered his bones in an attempt to humiliate what was once the nightmare of France. Now only a few remains are left in the monastery of San Jerónimo in Granada.
Gonzalo Fernández de Córdoba, el gran capitán, el hombre que inventó la guerra moderna.